Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have my good friend and coach, Thom Evans, back on the pod. So super excited to have you back on, Thom. And we're going to be talking about a number of things, including stimulants, caffeine, fatigue management, and various subjects that fall under being a competitor, in essence. So it'd be really cool to delve into all of those subjects. But first of all, let's have a bit of a life update, because you're a returning guest now. So it would be good to have a little catch up.
Yeah, we can catch up. I see you're out in Croatia, it looks like.
Oh yeah.
How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's super cool. Like I've said to you, it's quite a different thing for me to incorporate chill out time in a prep, because previously it's always been do more. And it's hard anyway, even in off season, I guess, when I try and chill out and prioritize that when being a bodybuilder. So this holiday started with a festival, but still it was coming away from training, having a deload, having a bit more food, to then come back and do the last 5 weeks of prep before my first show. So it's been quite an eye-opener that I can still enjoy life and a holiday whilst being a bodybuilder.
Yeah. I mean, we planned for this. So, we planned to be ahead enough to allow for this. We planned for it to be, you'd be overreached from training. We planned that you'd be over dieted so that, you would need a diet break. We planned all of those things at once. And I was quite surprised, actually, when you were asking me about, should you train? Should you be doing your posing? You'd got all your posing kit with you. And no, just keep your food on point to maintain weight, which hasn't happened, has it? You've lost weight anyway.
Yeah,
somehow.
I guess from the drop off of stress.
Yeah. And that's also something that it's nice to see in the physique. A competitor starts to feel like they're getting stuck, or weight loss is slowing down and things are getting harder, but they're also very fatigued, very stressed. They've been at the same thing for a long time, and it's not, you don't give them a magic fucking burger fries meal. You don't give them one night off. You do an appropriate deload. It's appropriate because you're overreached, and you bring your food up to just maintain weight and actually repair the damage you've done. And then the magical thing that happens there is complete fucking common sense, is that the body becomes less stressed, better rested. So yeah, you're in a position where those last 5 weeks of dieting will be productive rather than attritional, because that's where everyone gets stuck, isn't it, in the last 5 weeks? And then they start going a little bit nutty and doing all sorts of crazy things, like doubling down on cardio, taking DMP, maybe excessive fat burner use, no carbs, like dramatic changes to the diet and stuff like that. I think that's more of a fatigue accumulation, stress accumulation, diet fatigue kind of thing going on. So it's probably poor planning of the prep, because your prep's actually been, I mean, your prep and your season altogether was a 24-week plan, wasn't it? I think we've got 3 1-week breaks. And you'd have more. It's just that you're actually in competition season then, so you should be eating enough food and just training at maintenance volumes anyway. So that's not really a mesocycle. It's something a little bit different. And then for me, I've just been to Fit Expo, which was fantastic, with the Physique Collective as one of their athletes. And it was just nice to be. It's nice to be with our people, isn't it?
Oh yeah, like-minded people.
You're eating chicken and rice, and nobody comes up and goes, "What's that you're eating, mate?"
Innit?
Stinks. That stinks. I'm going back to my Greg's. It's just everyone gets it. Everyone gets it. I went to do some posing with Rye in the lair, and he was finishing up with one lad. So I was wearing a t-shirt and a pair of fuchsia pink glitter posing trunks. It was just like that, just waiting around in an expo, and nobody's looking at you like that's odd.
Yeah.
Maybe they even enjoyed it a little bit. I was told that some older ladies found the actual posing in the lair in those pink pants they were quite enthralled.
Will you be wearing these pink shorts when you are out on your motorbike?
Yeah, maybe. Well, do you want to see my collection now? I've got quite a collection.
What, of posing shorts?
So if you told me fucking 6 years ago that my wardrobe would be like this, I'd have said, fuck off, no chance. So I've got these ones, right?
Nice.
They're
plain
quite
Jane.
nice. Look, from this angle, the pouch looks quite big, but I can tell you it's not. And I've got that's like a turquoise. It doesn't really show that well on the camera, maybe from if I get the light back. But that's like a turquoise. And then these are the ones I think Retro Muscle should sponsor me. I reckon they should sponsor me if I wear them. Look at that. So I wore those in the lair. Now, the pair that I haven't yet tried, the orange.
Orange is paying.
Not sure if it's my color. Gonna find out. Babette from Divas Fitwear reckons it's a wild card. She thinks it could really suit me. And then this is I always go on my first show in royal blue. So, and then once I've built up a bit of confidence because the first show's gone all right, then I feel like I can bring out the more racy posing trunks.
So have you got plans to, because you're going to have a longer off season, aren't you? What are your plans now with competing in the future? Are you going to go back to stage?
Yeah, I'd love to actually be on stage this year, but I'm not big enough and too big. So classic's done for me. And I'm also, I'm starting to blow out those lines, like my hamstrings and glutes don't fit classic criteria anymore. My delts are still too big compared to my arms and my lats. So I need to add mass. I've got more mass than I should in some places. I need to add mass to actually have that kind of classic flow and level up. I don't have any weight limit left. Last time we didn't eat for 2 days. Water was massively restricted and I used diuretics and I weighed in like 2 ounces under. And of course, it wasn't my best look on stage, but that show I was quite lucky because everyone else was fat.
Yeah,
so extremely flat, beat fat. Like a couple of weeks later when I filled out, Joe said, "Yo, this is the best I've ever seen you look." So the form was there, but I was 10 kilos heavier, so 20 pounds heavier when he said that. So it's like, I mean, it's a no-brainer to go up to open. I am tiny for open. So it's the same thing though, because it's still aesthetic. So I need to just bring up my back, bring up my arms. And then when everything's kind of proportionate, we just see how much more mass I need to add because my waist has stayed very, very small. So maybe I don't need to be 300 on stage, but like 275, 280, like really, really lean would be a good open physique on my frame. So I really want that. So I think we're going to do 4 macro cycles. And that's like, one macro cycle for me is 4 training blocks. And after 4, I'm really fucked up. And it's cool because it comes into our talk about fatigue management. But so first training blocks, 4 weeks, we focus on, arms and lats and calves a little bit, but it gets harder every week until I'm really fucked up and I need a week off. And then I come back quite fresh and I do the same training block again. And I really need a week off. I normally start to feel like I need it earlier. And I don't come back for training block 3 quite as fresh. And then by the end of training block 3, I'm mullered. I have a week off and I come back and I don't really even feel that much less mullered. We do that 4th training block and then that's it. We move into like a 3-week. Joe just says it's because he knows me. He just says just do pump stuff. And that's me training for fun. That's where I don't train to failure anymore. Just go and get a pump. A bit what the 90s bodybuilders called intuitive training. It'd be like, I feel like doing a bit of back today. And I'll do 3 exercises, get a pump and leave. And what's interesting over those blocks is like, even though you're not doing a lot, your pumps get better again. And you feel better and your motivation for life improves and your appetite gets better, your sleep gets better, your stress markers improve massively. And you're like, after 1 week, you think, oh, I'm feeling really good now. I could probably almost go back. but you leave it longer and you see your stress markers continue to improve and your digestion improve and your sleep come up even more. And you're like, oh, fucking hell, I was really overreached. Give it another week or so after that. And you'd be surprised, because actually we even spent 15 months after my last shows below what I would say is effective for me to get big and as a bodybuilder now. So we basically just sort of refined and maintained, and we didn't really push anything hard. My physique got a lot better, but I continued to feel better every day for about 12 months. You know, so it's just like 7 years of constant competition seasons, no downtime, no off season, just, you know, maybe a 4 to 6 week rebound from a show and then back in. So there's all accumulated drug fatigue, because all those, if you're doing competition level gear, you're doing a lot of gear, and if you're doing a lot of competitions, then a lot of your year you're doing a lot of gear, and I, you know, wasn't sleeping like I should or could. And so we're in now, we've just started, we've got probably 4 of these macro cycles to go to kind of mass, and then we'll see where I'm at. And the aim is to start competing early spring 2024 and make a season, and make a full season, like a 6-month season out of it. It'll take a year to do all of that, right? Because I'll need a rest in the middle, and then I'll need a rest in the January 2024, and then it'll probably take me about 8 weeks to get in shape for a regional, because I think you've seen I walk around very lean, even on high food, so it's quite hard for me to get fat. So I think we probably have like 8 weeks to just come in for the March regionals, and then basically just tour. I want to tour around Europe. I really enjoy it. So we'll probably even do a European regional, tour around Europe. And Joe says he'll be at every show, you know, that I'm at. So I'd really like to challenge him to get out more.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about doing like Tokyo.
Fucking hell.
Bangalore. Where, well, I want to go to the most unreachable places in the world, so that Joe has to clock up like 1 million air miles. I think I'll do the Budapest, Prague, Italy, Portugal, Spain kind of circuit. So I'd like to do that, and also any kind of like big British events. So if they have the Arnold Sports Festival there, then that kind of thing. Yeah, I'd like to do all of that, but we'll just see. Don't know if we'll get the size on yet, but so far so good. He's just been touching the programming and the food and everything, and the response has been good. And I've been riding around on this motorbike I've had this a while, and this is Betty, and I'm going to share Betty with everyone. So
this is your interest outside of bodybuilding, which we always say as well. Even with stress management, trying to find things outside of bodybuilding is such a good thing.
Yeah. So when I got it, I was riding it around for the first time, and you can't do really high speeds on it because there's no windshield or anything on one of those. So once you hit about 100 kilometers an hour, like it's hitting you in the face. And if you ride for long enough, like your neck and your traps get a really good workout. It's for like cruising around stuff, but the acceleration, it's got like 100 horsepower. So the acceleration on a bike that weighs 300 kilos plus me, it says quite a lot. And I was like, woo, and I realized I was grinning, like just like mad grinning to myself. And I thought, God, I haven't really experienced like pure joy in, you know, just a simple act of play. I haven't played since I was a child. It woke something up in me, actually. I think I'd been in a dark place for a really long time, and I'd forgotten what joy felt like, and it was amazing. I was quite emotional, actually. You know, I was quite overwhelmed by the experience. So I try and ride on it. It's been good this year. I've had it out a lot. I've sexified it a little bit so I can have a lady on the back. And yeah, I really like it. Really like it. And my doggy, of course, as well. So he's here with me. Oh no, he's here. He's under the desk. He's got a bed under the desk because he likes to stay very close to me. Even the toilet. He comes to the toilet with me.
And we both share that in common, don't we? Like, bodybuilding has been something that has masked how unhappy we were in our personal life.
Yeah, it doesn't mask it. I think that we probably default to the most extreme OCD form of bodybuilding when there's something that emotionally we're not ready to fully process in one go.
Yeah.
So my dad died and I did a prep. You know, when my father died, the first thing I did was I removed calories and I gave myself, like, I wanted to 2-a-day workouts that prep. And, you know, and I was working. And so I just gave myself this, you know, just busyness, really.
Yeah. When you were talking about fatigue management and stimulants, it reminded me of a conversation that Matt and I were having the other day. So maybe we could touch on that. Where he's come out of a diet phase and got into maintenance, he's taken out all the stims, and he was like, honestly, I feel so much better. Like, I literally feel like I'm alive again, because it was fucking me, my sleep, how I feel, and like general, just, you know, when you get that like jittery feeling from stims. And
yeah,
he was feeling like a massive impact from taking them out.
Well, stimulants are a huge stressor and you know, widely abused in the fitness industry, not just bodybuilding. And then when there's like lots of different pathways that we can stimulate, and maybe we do want to stimulate them all a little bit in certain physique settings, right? Like in a prep. But there's certainly a fatigue cost, a stress cost. So if you're taking clenbuterol, you're instructing your brain to pump out a pretty huge amount of adrenaline over a very prolonged period. So you're not going to feel super chilled. So yeah, the thing is that the diet is fatiguing.
Yeah.
Because you're not eating enough to support perfect training performance and recovery, you're overtraining almost no matter what. That's why some coaches will pull training volumes really quite low, because there's, you know, the athlete will just end up in a hole before that, you know, they can't get stage lean because their bodies become unresponsive because they're overreached from training perhaps. But all of that it's going to happen in a dieting context. And so we're going to start to lean on stimulants, right? So starting in the off season, why would your stimulant use be anything more than a cup of coffee in the off season, right? Your job as a bodybuilder, and I know people listen to this have kids, have jobs, all these kinds of things, but the answer is not necessarily caffeine. It may be better sleep, it may be better diet. A heavy reliance on caffeine just to live your normal daily life.
Yeah.
I'd start to look for opportunities. There might not be any. Some people have really hard lives. But that same person might not want to go into a bodybuilding prep.
Yeah.
So you might look for opportunities, right? So why do you need 3 coffees in the morning? Well, I go to bed at 11 o'clock and I get up at 5. Why do you go to bed? What do you do between 9 and 11? And the answer's very, very rarely something useful.
Yeah.
So I'm just not tired at 9 o'clock. Okay, well, then there's something wrong with your pre-bed routine, which starts post-workout, probably. Right, your pre-bed routine, your wind down routine as an athlete needs to start post-workout. Doesn't need to be aggressive. If you finish training at 11 a.m.,
yeah,
you might just throw in some ashwagandha and some lion's mane, you know, to keep you alert for the day. You might not have any more caffeine after you've trained.
Yeah,
you move through the evening. And then you get home and it's 5 o'clock. So do something parasympathetic, go for a walk, come home, have a shower, cook your dinner. Cooking's relaxing. Prepare your dinner, cook your dinner. This might not fit everybody's life, right? If there are kids running around, this is going to be a different scenario. But just giving you examples of ways in which you'd start preparing for bed. And it starts washing. You know, this is really like crucial. And then if you're going to watch television, are you going to use some kind of blue light blockers? You know, so that, because right now you're looking at a bright screen, that's telling me it's daytime, blue and green light. So I want to block that. Maybe I read. Some people still like reading. Sleep hygiene routine is starting relatively early in the day and building up as you go to bed. And then if I want to go to bed at 9, then maybe at 8:30, I've definitely finished eating by then, right? I want to finish eating by about 7:30 if I want to go to bed at 9. And then maybe about 8:30, I do 10 milligrams of melatonin. These are melatonin, by the way. When I opened them, the label all came off, but they're not THC ones. I've got some of them. I'm not showing you. And I happen to have hay fever at the moment, and I found these hay fever tablets that are so ineffective, or they're effective at dealing with hay fever, but they're so effective at making people drowsy that they're marketed also as a sleep aid. So I take my morning hay fever tablet is a non-drowsy, and my evening one is a drowsy one. And without fail, by 9 o'clock, I've been exposed to no blue and green light. I've had my melatonin. I've done my wind down through the day. I'm not still stressed. You know, I'm ready to go to bed. That's one off-season factor driving caffeine use. The other could just be habit, not really paying attention. So I had one client and he was having about 6 hits of caffeine a day. And I mentioned it to him and he was like, oh, a lot of it's just habit. Like just every time I go on a break, I have a cup of coffee with the boys. So it was like, I was like, well, probably 2 coffees and your pre-workout is reasonable for a guy of your weight. And he was like, all right, yeah, that's fine. That's just what I'll have then. So he had no physical dependence whatsoever. That was just habit. And then the other thing is like, some people think that they need to have pre-workouts to train, right? I mean, you can't need pre-workout to train. Come on. I mean, for arm day, like double scoop, a double scoop of kill it, you know, go and train arms. Like, what the fuck? Bodybuilding's a bit like a job, right? We've got to show up every day and be consistent. We've got to go in the gym and be able to put in a consistent amount of effort. And if you go in the gym on 500 milligrams of caffeine, one, I actually think your workout might be worse. But because your perception of effort will be different. But 2, like the amount of work that you'll do, the amount of just moving around, like, and the amount of stimulus your brain's getting, you're just fatiguing yourself. So how could you do that again the next day and the next day, and then and people try and then they go, oh, my pre-workout's not working anymore. So yes, because you are so overreached, you don't even realize, and you've not put yourself there through training or dieting or anything that bodybuilders should be doing. You've just put yourself there through substance abuse. Right? Would cocaine be good for my recovery? Be like, you know, most people would twig, right, that taking cocaine every day was affecting their recovery capabilities. They'd be like, yeah, I'm not my greatest self because I've been on a 30-day cocaine bender. But people will be 30 days straight on pre-workout and wonder why they're tired all the time.
And you become reliant.
That's the answer. So what do you do? Because weaning yourself off caffeine is fucking horrible. And I don't recommend going cold turkey. So most caffeine wean protocols do a reduction of 50 milligrams a day. And then you get down to a minimum of 50 milligrams. And you might stay there with sort of a mild headache and not very good energy levels for quite some time before you normalize. If you've been on maybe like 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of caffeine a day, you know, in the more extreme cases. And for those of you that are on like 500, well, 400 is considered pretty safe. But if you exist on 400 and you've got plans to overreach or prep or, you know, do more with your life in the future, then you might not want that to be your baseline, right? So let's say we've got this like upper limit of 400 milligrams. We might only want to expose ourselves to that maybe in the last like 4 weeks of prep. You know, when your energy need, when the amount you're eating is, it's just probably between week 6 and week 2 of prep, isn't it? Yeah. Because you'll start to eat into the show a little bit. But so when you're really, really getting exotically lean, you've managed to hold your caffeine around that sort of 100 to 200 milligram mark. So now you can effectively increase it by 50 milligrams a week, or even, you know, or even just go straight in. You're not going to adapt that quickly, but you have a tool there still to use. And there are other stimulants that you can be using as well. So, you know, if you started off your prep with all of the tools, and a lot of people do this, they go straight in hard on the Clen, hard on the yohimbine, they're already hard on the caffeine because that's where they've been all year. Maybe throw in some ephedrine, stimmed out your mind, modafinil on top of that. I'm like, I mean, this is crazy. How could you expect a body exposed to that level of continuous stress? So a lot of those drugs are in your system for a very long time. How could you expect that to be a responsive body? And then how are you going to get it to respond when you start to pick up additional fatigue?
Yeah, sure. Like you say, your body becomes non-responsive. It's crazy when, like, I think when you're in a prep and you're using caffeine, stimulants and things like this, you don't sometimes realize how much of an effect all of those things are having. And then when you come out the back of a prep or you come off the stims for a week or whatever for deload, you're like, oh shit, they are making quite the impact. And you're masking fatigue a lot psychologically as well. So you're thinking, oh, well, I'll rely on the stimulants, the caffeine and all of these things in your mind because you just get through the prep. And then it just, it's like this whole of it just becomes so difficult away from that.
Yeah. So there's 2 parts to that, I suppose. Is one, accepting fatigue. Yeah. That's not a very modern concept, right? We very rarely just do things tired. Yeah. In fact, we very rarely do anything without having caffeine first. It's like procaffeinating. So it's like, I'm going into a meeting in a minute, so I'll go for a coffee first. I've got to do the laundry. I'll have a coffee first. Bins need taking out. Yeah, I'll just have a coffee. And it's endemic in how we go about our days, is to just not do things tired. But that's not reasonable when you're putting yourself in an overreach state deliberately in order to get contest lean, within a certain time frame as well. So you need to accept that you'll be doing a lot of things in your day tired. What we don't want you to do is train tired, or we don't want that to be your most tired part of the day. So we want to make sure that if we can, training performance is the one bit of the day where you do have a little bit of energy. So we might give you a bit of carbs before and during training, and we might give you caffeine before training. So essentially, when we're talking about accepting fatigue, so the only time that we might want to have energy in a prep setting, really, that we need to, is for training. So maybe a small amount of carbs, or whatever small amount of carbs you can have. You're going to have the bulk of your carbs before and during training, and you're going to have the bulk of your caffeine before training. Now, if you also have some cardiovascular activity through the day, like, I wouldn't recommend caffeinating every time to do that. But perhaps if it's the first thing you do in the morning and your habit is to have coffee, then okay, have a black coffee and do your morning cardio. So you've got probably those 2 hits of caffeine that you use through the day. Now, deeper in the back end of prep, coach might allocate you some more caffeine to actually just you know, psychologically help you get through life easier. I wouldn't have thought that that would be larger hits in the same sort of serving. I think it would just be, you know, okay, have an extra coffee mid-morning, you know, and maybe have a coffee mid-afternoon if sleep quality is already sort of diminishing. A major source of stress is simply that client is struggling to get, you know, life done because they're so tired. So sometimes it's, I mean, you're gonna, if you're that exhausted, you probably sleep well anyway, but there's a lot of stimulants in your system. And if you're really, really struggling between that sort of 4 and 8 p.m. window because you're so exhausted, you can't get anything done, it's causing you stress, then deploy another coffee and keep it simple as that. Apart from maybe before training, it could be like an energy drink, a low dose pre-workout. Yeah, so we've got the caffeine dosed appropriately for the training window, and then just bolused into maybe sort of cups of coffee throughout the day rather than, you know, allowing multiple energy drinks. That's just going to be a huge amount of unnecessary caffeine and cause more stimulus to the brain than caffeine alone, because of course energy drinks have got other pathways that they stimulate. That's the sort of thought behind caffeine management when you're thinking about fatigue, really. So essentially, we're just trying to ensure as good a training performance as possible, perhaps for stress management purposes, even though it's a stressor in itself. At the point where you're so tired that emptying the bin is a source of stress, then you might want to deploy some additional caffeine. So this is really like the last 4 weeks of prep. So, okay, what I'm talking about there, we've got 3 strong cups of black coffee and a can of Monster at the very deepest, darkest, most fatigued end of sort of section of prep when you're getting that last bit of fat off. If that was already your normal routine, you'd have to double it during that time, and then you're getting into, you know, levels that'll be deleterious to sleep and general health as well, right? So data to tell us that 400 milligrams is a safe daily tolerable dose as an upper limit. So caffeine management throughout the year, if your caffeine's already high now and you're tired and irritable and stuff like, you're exhibiting symptoms of low cortisol because you're constantly, you know, pounding stuff out. If you're lethargic, irritable, depressed, and your caffeine intake is high, start reducing your caffeine 50 milligrams a day. And you might find out that, you know, you're a lot nicer person. Other people are a lot nicer and you enjoy life a lot more.
Well, you rely on it as well. Like, I remember when I used to do pre-workout as in like powder that you add to water rather than Monster. And I used to feel like you touched on earlier that I couldn't do a workout without it. And it became this like psychological attachment to pre-workout, not that I actually needed it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, because this last year I had all this downtime, I was able to pull stimulants, you know, down and down and down. And actually I had to, because my body was in such a good sort of position energy wise. If I put in a pre-workout, it was too much, right?
Yeah.
So I think one thing to think about is if you are like, oh, I'm used to a scoop of pre-workout, 2 scoops of pre-work, you know, they don't do that much for me. You're probably chronically fatigued. So your sensitivity to caffeine will increase the better rested you are, to the point, you know, assuming you pull down caffeine as well. And, you know, to the point where now I know that next week, if I follow my caffeine protocol from this week, which was my cup of instant on waking, my mocha espresso, like before I walk the dogs and do check-ins, and I have my can of Monster before training. If I do that next week, it'll be all right day 1, day 2, but by day 3, I'll be so much more rested that I'll feel, you know, when you feel it's too much caffeine, you're like jittery, anxious, a bit headachy maybe. So it's quite interesting, your physiological response to stimulants is going to change along with your physical state. So yeah, it might be interesting for those people to, like, who are also on high caffeine, maybe pull back a little bit on, you know, maybe they're training, maybe they haven't had a deload ever. Well, you know, and deloads are important. There are no there are no credible training strategies that don't include deload. If you want to train hits, balls deep, low rep, high intensity training, you need rests and deloads. You can't even train that often. If you do higher volume training, you train to failure, you'll accumulate fatigue over time. You'll need to deload. Your training progression stalls if you don't allow your body to rest. So yeah, I mean, if you're if you're this person, someone's listening to this who's on their 4th can of Monster today and who hasn't had a day off training in about 3 years, and they'll be thinking, oh, maybe I should have a week off. It's hard to take. How do you manage your deloads?
Because I didn't used to do them, and then obviously working with you, I do now, and I love having deloads. Like, I feel ready to have them both psychologically and physically, because I feel like, so every deload we've had in this prep, I've lost weight as well, and then I've gone back to training, being able to commit more psychologically, because I feel like I can actually connect with training more rather than just pushing through fatigue all the time. And they're timed exactly right to manage the fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't had a deload and you really don't feel like you need one, you're probably not training hard enough, often enough, right? Because your training blocks, a bit less so while we're dieting you, but remember in the off season, every single week got harder. So we added intensifiers, we added sets to things like glutes and hamstrings, right up until week 4, which is called Death Week. And, you know, the volume there is more than you can recover from. The intensifiers are more than you can recover from, because you've got that week coming up and we're going to feed you. And all your body's going to do is use all of those recovery resources to grow. So you've done all of that damage, all of that work, and now you can actually heal from it, which in a normal week you never can, because you're still, you know, as soon as you start healing from one training session, you start another training session. You know, it probably take 9 days to fully heal and feed and recover a damaged muscle, but we're training them every 3 days or something. So, you know, you've got that accumulate. And that's also why we start off with slightly lower volumes, because if in week 1 we damage that muscle beyond, you know, a recoverable ability, and then we did it again 3 days later, and again, you probably just lose muscle. You definitely wouldn't grow any.
Yeah, it becomes counterproductive, but you become emotionally married to the fact that you need to train all the time and you need to be going to war, in inverted commas, every time you train.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't deload. I have to have the week off.
Just take yourself out of the environment.
Yeah, literally, I'll go on holiday. So that's like 8 weeks a year to just go on holiday.
Yeah.
And I'll time it a little bit, you know, like if I'm coming to see, if you've got a show in the UK and I know I want to be there for 4 or 5 days, then I'll probably just program, like, because I could program a 5-week meso. I just start week 1 with lower training volumes than I otherwise would. So I almost have like a week just slightly above maintenance, and then, you know, and just get aggressive until, you know, that week 5 is the week where I'm fucked up. But I know I'm spending 4 days with you for your show, and then I've got 3 days to come back, recover from travel. Okay, you know, maybe the circumstances, it's not like I'm just sleeping and resting. I don't need to do that. I just need to not stimulate my muscles for enough time that, you know, they can get on top of, you know, really repairing fully and growing.
Yeah.
So, and my other job that week is to eat well, because a lot of people, they go on a deload and they start they just go off plan. They don't eat enough food. They start eating 3 times a day. It's like if they're not training, the nutrition doesn't matter. But if it takes 9 days for that muscle to fully repair,
yeah,
and you've just got 6 or 7, you want to be eating your steak and your, you know, all your high quality proteins and, you know, everything that your body really needs to grow. So lots of micronutrients, different fiber sources too. The only thing that you might want to do is pull your carbs down a bit, because your energy demands aren't as high And it's never a good scenario to just be sitting around with elevated blood glucose.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe a slightly higher split of fats than you normally would, you know, just to manage stable blood glucose levels. You can be active, move around, you still go for your walks. If you don't walk, but you do light cardio on bike, you know, all that stuff can kind of stay, but you give your muscles a break. And in your case, for this holiday, it's like no posing, no, just psychological break as well, because although you've got 5 weeks to a regional, you're not going to put your stage shoes away until nearly November.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, and because you want to tick all your boxes, that means that every day you get up and you tick those boxes. And it means that from the start of the day to the end of the day, bodybuilding is at the forefront of your mind. And you love bodybuilding, so that's great. But no matter what you love, if you do it too much for long enough, you get tired of it. And you'll have a more successful prep if you can have these little timeouts. Timeout doesn't need to mean that you get drunk or you overeat. It just means time away from a lot of the bodybuilding tasks that you need to tick. It means maintaining your body condition. And it means improving your mental health, actually, reducing your stress levels. It's almost like it's part of your job as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're a professional bodybuilder. Part of your job is to have effective downtime. You think like top NBA players on their rest days sit around like they get to eat hot dogs and, you know, just like do fuck all, drink beer. Like their rest day is they still go to work. They have rehab, they go physio. And I suppose that's another thing that you can set up as, you know, as a bodybuilder for fatigue management. If you're not good at actually resting, you can set up a rest day to include tissue work, maybe a yoga class, you know, for your mobility, maybe meditation. Like you're still giving yourself boxes to tick, but they're gonna help with your recovery. And, you know, maybe if you can't just chill the fuck out, then maybe you can at least give yourself a ton of activities to help you chill the fuck out.
I find as well, like knowing that my macros are going to decrease when I get back, and there's going to be changes to the PDs and what have you, and I've got to dig. I find that this holiday has been strategically placed so that I can get ready to just fucking go in when I get back, and I'm happy with that. Like, I'm so pumped.
Yeah, well, it was pretty strategically placed, because when I did the original planning, we didn't know about this holiday. And as soon as we did, we were able to just shift your training block by a week, deload you. And actually it worked better. I was happier with the proximity. So that was really, really good. That was really, really good.
It just gives you that, like, right, I can reset. And when I come back, because obviously I haven't brought things with me being in Croatia, so there's going to be a reset of PEDs, stimulants, introduction of Primo as well, and the difference in, you know, the macros, all of those things. I need to be ready for that. So it's a really good opportunity to do that.
And you mentioned something very important there. You're reintroducing some of your baseline PEDs. So as you're away, so we kept your testosterone, we kept your exogenous thyroid. These are essential hormones for you, for your health, wealth, and well-being, that they stay optimized. So those are your prescription drugs, and you need those. However, we took a week off clenbuterol, and we took a week off yohimbine. We took a week off growth hormone. Now, not necessarily because there's any benefit to doing that, but simply that it's ridiculous to try and take to a festival and successfully microdose. So it would be a stress or a crime, or just something that we just don't want to deal with. And your injectable L-carnitine as well. So when we come back in, you're in a better position because you're rested and all the rest of it. But we get to and you've lost weight. We get to reintroduce clenbuterol and yohimbine that you've now resensitized to somewhat, which doesn't mean that they're going to be more effective at lipolysis, but you're going to move around more.
Yeah,
All right. And it means that we won't have to increase another stimulant elsewhere, you know. So we've increased caffeine once from 1 to 2 coffees, and you get your can of Monster before training. So you don't even reach for pre-workout. So, you know, you're this deep into prep, you're very, very lean, and we've still got plenty of tools in the box. You've had a little break from some of the stimulants as well. So we've got 5 more weeks of them feeling maybe pretty effective, maybe less. To be fair, your next diet is quite aggressive. I wouldn't want to be on that diet.
I'm ready.
Meal 1, a peanut and an ice cube. You're allowed to sprinkle. You have to put your whey protein in a pepper pot, and you can just sprinkle whey protein onto the ice cube. So you're allowed, for flavor, because like I'm not a sadist, so you get a little bit of whey protein on your ice cube. That's meal 1, and then we do an 18-hour fast.
And then I can eat a cucumber with stevia.
No, then your evening meal is 1 kilo of petit pois. So, yeah, you know, that would be some diet, doesn't it? Yeah, so obviously you're going to move into this hard dieting phase. We've got plenty of tools, and then you'll be in shape for your season, which means that we don't need to keep dieting you, so we can remove stimulants. They're a stressor, and you already know from this holiday that you drop fluid when stress drops. And then we're also going to be able to feed you better. So your muscle's going to pop. You're going to have that lovely roundness. You're round as fuck when you're flat. So when we actually put some cardio, and the idea is that then you can train, you can enjoy the season. You are not going to feel your best at a low body fat percentage, but you shouldn't be feeling the way that you feel at 3 weeks out your entire competition season. That's not the way. That's not the way to do it. That's not how, you know, you get an athlete into condition, and then you need to keep them looking fresh, healthy, and everything through the season. And that's just managing the calorie intake. And you can manipulate it, but you can do some high days and low days to keep things sensitive. And well, essentially, you just don't take the athlete above maintenance calories. So, you know,
and to time
however you do that on average, they'll have a good season.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of people that do get to certain points in prep, and it could be only halfway through, and consequently that's why people drop out, because they hate the day-to-day life, because they're hanging in there. They're not enjoying prep. And I always say to people, I actually enjoy the whole of my prep, because, you know, it's the psychological torment you can go through in a prep if it isn't managed well, and you're maybe put on too low calories too early on, or various other things. It can really fuck with your mental state.
Yeah, so and this isn't the case in the past for me. Like, I've described or perceived a breakdown in my mental health in prep, and it doesn't happen anymore. And except I've cried on your shoulder, but that was because of letrozole, and I won't do that again.
And it was a very long diet.
And for context, I also cried on the plane when Jean-Claude Van Damme punched Tong Po in the nuts in a particularly poignant scene in Kickboxer. So we can say that hormonally there was a problem.
Yeah.
No. So, you know, you'll go through your difficult stages and everything like that. We've got all the good tools in the box, and you're going to come out of this. And you know what? I'm really excited for post-show, because you've never done a post-show with me. And let's talk about reversing fatigue management and diet fatigue, right? Because we're talking about fatigue management today. So you come out of prep, and what do? You're not in prep anymore. You can eat the fridge, right?
Yeah. Well.
No.
Yeah.
So first of all, anything that's been suppressing your appetite is not what you're going to pull in its entirety on day one. Stimulants suppress appetite. You're also not going to change habits and behaviors on day one, but you might reduce intensities. So the shape of the day, and a lot of competitors, especially the first timers, when this structure's gone, they feel very lost, they feel very depressed, right? And that's a real problem. And the problem is, first of all, the prep was shit. So like you described, they did it non-stop, burned into the absolute dust, dieted into the dust, monotony, no diet breaks, no fatigue management, nothing. They are not capable of following any form of structure anymore. It's not even so much a case of physical exhaustion. It's mental burnout. It's like high-flying lawyers become incapable of doing their jobs. Doctors cannot go to the hospital and be trusted to perform surgery. You're burned out. So you're completely burnt. So first of all, you can't burn out, right? You need a sensible approach to prep. And like Sarah does with me, right? Sometimes you need somebody to guide you through that, particularly if you're of the mindset, like I am, like Sarah is, and this is why I know how to plan your season, because I know exactly what I would do, and I know exactly when I'd have myself in a hole that would be very difficult to climb out of.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why I'll have Joe. So very highly driven, very highly competitive, very motivated people will literally do whatever it takes, except that sometimes they find it hard to understand that what it takes is rest and relaxation, you know, because there's more has to be more, right? You can outwork other athletes by being more effective at fatigue management than them, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to outwork them by doing more hours in the gym. That's not going to work, because they're all doing enough hours in the gym. If you just do more than them, you'll just turn up fucked up. You need to, you know, you outwork people by being more effective in bodybuilding, by getting the most effective nutrition, most appropriate and effective deployment of drugs, the most appropriate, effective fatigue management, the amount of training volume, you know, all of these kind of things for a successful prep. So you don't fuck yourself up and burn out. And you come out of prep, and what happens is you've got a pattern of eating that's very firmly established. It was established in your off season. The meals have kind of shrunk down a bit, and there are some things missing from the menu that'll go back in. But we'll just start to build your meals back out again. Any portion of oats you have will get bigger. Any portion of rice you have will get bigger. Any portion of sourdough bread you have will get bigger. Your protein will increase somewhat if it's been lowered just for diet purposes. Your fats will increase to a point where you can achieve, you know, healthy hormonal levels. Hopefully, we don't pull fats too low on any diet. They sort of stay at a sort of a baseline the whole year round, and protein too. But there are extreme circumstances. So all we're really talking about here is building out the carbs. Now, as the carbs go up, we can start to titrate the stimulants down. You're going to be hungry for a fucking month after your show. It doesn't matter how much you eat. You can have a full stomach, and your brain will still be telling you to eat. You can have a painfully full stomach. So first of all, you are going to be hungry. Let's not throw away all of the things that are suppressing your appetite from day one. So if you've been taking clenbuterol, that's pretty deleterious. I do want to get that out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But let's say it's week one. I ballpark your maintenance calories, and I take your clenbuterol from 80 micrograms down to 40. And we sense check how much caffeine you're on, and we reduce it a little bit. So if you're on 3 coffees a day and a can of Monster, we go down to 2 and a can of Monster. And those are the only changes we make in week one. And if you're also using something like glucagon-like peptide for appetite management, that's also a good thing to keep in post-show, or even introduce post-show, because it increases satiation. Food stays in the stomach for longer, so digestive transit time is slowed. It's also a good blood sugar management tool, and it suppresses one of your appetite regulating hormones. So this is the slim pen or skinny pen that you've seen probably touted by some C-list celebrities in the UK that lost weight on it. Of course, people who use that, who have absolutely zero willpower, literally no willpower, can lose 50 pounds
Yeah.
you know, just an injection a day. You could introduce that so that you're not gonna be like getting fat. And because as soon as you get fat, you're gonna have to diet down, and then it becomes this kind of vicious cycle. So we keep stuff in, maybe like low dose DNP, those kind of things. But we're trying to pull out stimulants over time as we increase food over time, as appetite normalizes over time, as fatigue drops off over time, as stress drops off over time. So just like we wouldn't go into prep and throw the kitchen sink at it on day one, we don't pull everything when we come out of that season. And the reason you would have to pull everything out is if you did an abusive prep with unnecessary amounts of drugs, you know, and you were killing yourself. So if we followed an appropriate use model for the athlete's goals, because I'm seeing as a male, right? And female drug abuse is often different in terms of sort of reported side effects. But I'm seeing as a male, guys on Instagram, they're crying into their Instagram stories. They've had to quit their prep. They're really sick. Their mental health has suffered. And they're just doing a regional amateur show. And they start listing what they were taking, you know? And it's like, well, I mean, you're taking a lot of things that have got a strong binding affinity for the glucocorticoid receptor. You've got a lot of stuff that's essentially going to affect your mental health. You're taking a lot of it, a ridiculous amount of it. You know, appropriate deployment of performance enhancing drugs and not overly leaning on anabolic steroids as your primary drug. Okay, they are going to be, this is bodybuilding, they are going to be the most effective tool that you have. But by using a polypharmacy model, so why do we use growth hormone? Well, it means that we can use less steroids and get the same outcome. Why do we use insulin? You know, all these kind of similar reasons. It means that, you know, in order to make the progress that we need to progress to you know, relatively high levels, anabolic dosages would creep up to, you know, unacceptable levels. So we can follow a polypharmacy model and we can actually get pretty far in our physique development goals without significant harm to our health. And then there's a decision to be made. Am I able to build a marketable physique? As in, can I make money from this physique?
Yeah.
You know, can I live this lifestyle? And that might require a bit of a push. That's that risk versus reward. Like, am I gonna push my health because the reward is this? And then you don't necessarily need to maintain levels of drug abuse that are going to continue to harm your health. Once your physique is built, just like once muscle is built, you can maintain on less. So an anecdote of a lot of older IFBB pros is they're like, I'm using less gear than I ever have. I say, yes, and you're also not growing because you can't fucking grow because your body's like 280 pounds shredded anyway. You know, you can maintain that on far less than it took to build it. All right. And that's still far more than it would take for me to maintain my physique because they're big boys. You know, they're still on, it's not like they can walk around on CRT and maintain. They're probably, maybe they need like 500 milligrams of gear to maintain, you know.
But we've all heard horror stories of PEDs. Like, so many people that I speak with that take advice from someone down their local gym and they just start taking whatever there's, and they stop themselves. And this is a massive part of the PED series in the pod, is trying to up the awareness of trying to make it as safe as it can be if you go down this route. And we're in bodybuilding, like, PED use is massive. So if we can help people understand more.
Yeah. And because of your openness, I have clients come to me, and existing clients too, who have hormonal disruption. And they because we've talked about your baseline model, they want to fix their hormonal disruption. One of my ladies has moved from that to wanting to do women's figure. What you have to understand is, from a psychological perspective, from where this person's come from, how huge a deal that is.
Yeah.
You know, it is like, there was a point, you know, when you say dream big, you
Yeah.
know, and you ask somebody their dreams and you're like, I wish you felt, you know, it was possible for you to ask for more. And then there's been this kind of like progression over time where they can dream big, you know,
Yeah.
like they've got more belief in themselves, you know, they believe they have a right, you know, they actually believe they deserve something. So yeah, your openness has actually brought out for me not a bunch of like women who want to get jacked up as bodybuilders, but a bunch of women who are perimenopausal, maybe premenopausal, definitely postmenopausal, coming to me wanting to fix their hormonal profiles. And I've also had some males come my way for exactly the same reason. You know, they're like, I'm not interested in getting big like a bodybuilder, and I want to be healthy, but I know that I'm not healthy and happy, and the doctors won't help me. And you know, I've heard you talk about optimizing hormones and how, you know, how life-changing that is.
It's massive. Like, it's not, PED use isn't just even for bodybuilders, is it? It's for, like, for me, fixing hormones that I had a problem with. You know, people diet because they excessively diet for normal life. It doesn't have to be to compete, and you can fuck yourself. You know, there's a whole world of different things that come from extreme dieting, and to be able to inform people that there is potentially ways to fix that is just super cool.
Yeah, and actually, you know, and a point of consultation is that we have yet to introduce anabolic steroids into your prep. You've not used them, so you've done your off season with me, you've done your prep with me this far, and we've not used anabolic steroids yet. They're going in now at the start of your season, and there will be a dramatic change in your physique, and people will be able to see the difference. But your physique is already an incredible physique. And so I think it's really important to understand that that kind of model of hormonal optimization is on the back of, you know, plus gym training, plus attention to your diet and everything, is a physique that most people would dream of.
Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But they, you know, also people would think that, you know, you'd have to compromise your health, perhaps. Yeah. And it's the opposite is true. We have to complement your health. Yeah.
This is what Joe always says, like with some of his athletes that, you know, like wellness or some of the other categories. He says it's amazing how low their dose is and their physique, how it is compared to what you'd think they would need to take to get that physique.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we've moved through caffeine management in the off season and stimulant use. We've moved through fatigue management in prep and stimulant use. We've come out of prep. We've talked about stimulant use and recovery over that, maybe that sort of 4-week period as appetite normalizes in post-show. And then let's then talk about fatigue management then. Okay, so that post-show window of training certainly shouldn't be your like a very aggressive training block, but I would still take advantage of the fact that I'm eating more food, feeling good, enjoying training again. I would not follow an intense, you know, a training program. Like with my clients, I'd probably just say, these are your volume landmarks. Like I want you to hit 20 sets of back, 12 sets of chest, 20 sets of legs this week, you know, and just go ahead and enjoy your training, try out some new machines. You do that for like, you know, the 4-week period, and then you move into maybe a structured recovery block.
Yeah.
So now everything's out. Now we return to the baseline PED model, 100%, if we haven't already. Now we begin to titrate food according to the athlete's body composition needs at that time. Most likely, still maintenance calories. And we'll pull training volumes down to allow them to refresh, and we'll need to manage that. So we'll start to reintroduce training structure, and we'll freshen them back up, and then we'll give them a full deload again. And then at that point, we can say, right, what's next? And it's bodybuilding, isn't it? Then we should be in a prime position, not fat, to do our massing phase. So we now begin a 6 to 12 month, so basically 1 or 2 macro cycles, just geared at massing before the athlete steps on stage again, unless they're very accomplished and want to remain in their class, in which case you'd probably just have 1 macro cycle geared on sort of refinement, and then maybe look at either additional downtime or potentially more shows, because you only have such a long career. If you're good, if you're good, you're ready to go. If you're winning, then get the shows under your belt.
Yeah.
So that's it. Fatigue management 101.
Yeah, and I think
do deloads. Don't hammer caffeine. Wean yourself off stims as food goes up, and when food's high, stims should be low.
Yeah, and a massive point during this whole pod is to plan your season, to plan like years in advance. You don't have to just plan 1 year. If you're needing a long off season, or whatever your plans are, could be 2 to 3 years that you think this is what I need to do for the next 2 to 3 years to get on stage as best as I can and not be competitive in essence.
So what do you think you're doing for the whole of 2023?
Gaining.
Yeah, we've got to go up to
Recovering.
wellness. You've got your post-Arnold kind of recovery block, and then we've got 2 macro cycles to move you up to wellness.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what my
physique... It might even be 4. You never know. You might spend the next 2 years moving up. We just have to see. We can only expose you to anabolics so much, so we can't force it. So just have to. But you are fucking muscular for bikini. So
it depends as well, doesn't it, where the categories go over the next couple of years, and how I
wellness is an interesting one at the moment, because in order for the girls to get bigger or drier, I think you'll be pushing masculinization quite quickly, so the career would be quite short. We're already seeing some of the wellness girls that broke through when they first brought the category. They're already starting to exhibit some signs of masculinization, and that's not what the category is about. So I think that, just like classic physique, I think they'll probably settle on a sweet spot where they've got the ideal level of muscularity and dryness and balance. But there'll be that negotiation with it for a little bit of a little while, and then they'll find their ideal champion, and then it just filters down from there. In classic physique, if you've got a structure like Bumstead, then you're going to go far, right? That's what defines classic physique. And I think that wellness is still yet to be fully defined. I think Angela Borges is amazing. I think Urishna Ayala is, there's some amazing ones up there, but I think they need a consistent champion. A bit like with bikini, there's probably 5 or 6 physiques that you can say is the best bikini in the world. It's just how the judging panel likes it on a certain day, a touch drier, a touch softer, a touch more delts, a touch more glutes, a little muscular bikini, or a more petite bikini. There'll probably be some subtleties in the look, but I think that it'll be very definitive and it'll settle down. But at the moment, maybe muscularity is pushing through a touch too much. And also the coaches for wellness, I think, particularly in Brazil, will be exposing the girls to, we talked about that virilization cup, and I have the perfect demonstration piece, right? So my demonstration cup is this one from Compact. If you want to go online, Compact store, or just follow at Compact Women, anabolic androgenic coffee. Look, there it is, Compact, not Comac, not Comac, it's Compact. So this is what's happening, right? Is if you've been smart about it and you're in your wellness career and you want a 10-year career, you're using your androgens and you're getting bigger over time, and your competitive physique comes about here, and you've still got a long career ahead of you. Probably what some of the Brazilian coaches have done is chucked a bunch of gear at bikini girls, and they're here now, and they're only 1 or 2 seasons in. So that'll be that.
That also depends on if you want to push up a category, how much you want to go into the PD use, doesn't it?
Yeah, and listen, a really key point for just distinguishing whether you should be bikini or wellness is it is just structural. The PD use should be the same. So it is just structural and then programming. So the way that we'll take you to wellness is through programming.
Yeah.
It's not through we're going to change your PD model whatsoever. But what we wouldn't probably, if you were to stay in bikini now, we wouldn't expose you to any anabolics in the off season. You're too big.
Yeah.
But for wellness, we probably will. And then we'll probably use a whole year's worth and do a whole year of massing. And then the year after is when we'd look at, okay, do we need to do that again? Do we need to do that for half the year? And you're just going to assess by looking at the shows. I mean, until you're lean, until you're peeled and you stand next to the other girls, you're not going to know if you are of the caliber, top 5 caliber.
Yeah, and where I place and fit in the IFBB bikini.
Well, for the bikini this year, yeah, I mean, we're moving around, so we've got different judging panels as well to try out. So we've got the European judging panels and the British. So I think that we'll probably find who favours muscular, dry. We'll get your feedback from every show, and yeah, I think that'll be interesting. And it was your personal wish to go to wellness.
Yeah, if I can, I think the main factor to the decision will be how I fare and how I look against the other girls in this season, and then I think we'll have conversations around that to decide.
Yeah, I suppose that if you are sort of pro bikini cal and they like it, and then you need to step up to pro bikini level, then that might be in an off season in itself. If the feedback is that you're just too damn muscular for bikini and you need to go into a different category, then that's that as well. But I've seen there are more muscular girls than you in bikini. That's not the issue. It's just a really weird problem is you'll get told in amateur you're too muscular for bikini, and then but if you did get a pro card, you'd go into pro bikini and you wouldn't be big enough. You
wouldn't even get a look in.
No. So stupid. If you look like a pro, you should get a pro card.
It's so hard.
That's it. It's not like pro cards are in short supply. Fuck me.
We shall. Exciting times ahead. But thank you for coming on the pod today.
Yep. Give a shout out to my members site that I work for, the Physique Collective. We have a lot of information, especially I know that there are a lot of female listeners. There's a female forum, but we've got a lot of information on there, a lot of over 1,000 videos, I think now, even some videos of me cooking, fully nude. Just kidding. You can edit that bit in or out. Yeah. I don't care as long as it drives footfall, and it's only like $6.99 a month. So yeah, that's really, really good. And I would highly recommend that everybody checks that out.
For sure. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, Instagram is the best place.
Instagram is the best place. And just find me through Sarah. At Thom Evans, tom.evans.ifbb. But my name is Thomas, so it's spelled THOM.Evans, EVANS.IFBB, and you can find me there. And you can message me. I have my inbox open on my computer alongside my WhatsApp while I'm coaching all day, so I see most every messages.
Yeah, I'm sure people appreciate that, so it's nice of you to offer that as well.
Yeah. People want small advices or strike up a conversation or whatever it may be. Then do my best to help everybody. Client or no, although clients get the priority. So I'm not answering messages when my clients have got needs.
That's what makes a good coach. Well, until the next time, thank you and farewell.
Enjoy the rest of your holiday. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.